Welcome, everybody. We're just going to give people just a minute to join our webinar here. We see people pouring in. We are going to be taking Q&A today. So if you can, let's test out chat right now. Go ahead and click chat and text in there. Where are you coming in from? Where are you zooming in from today? I'm in beautiful Tampa, Florida, which is, by the way, absolutely gorgeous here today, but it's going to get warm. So let's just make sure that that is working for everyone and we can see where everyone is coming in from. Starting to see some come in. Great. We got some Michiganders in the house. We got Paris. Oh, we're international. Although that might be Paris, Texas, but I'm guessing it's probably Paris, France. I'm going with Paris, France. Okay, so as we have people, Stuttgart, oh my gosh, we have officially gone global. So hopefully everyone's having an amazing day today. I'm Heather Cole with Lodestar Solutions, and I'm really just Vanna White today. And we have a really interesting webinar on IBM Cognos versus Power BI, choosing the right tool for your business. And with us today, we have two powerhouses. We have Nipun from ClimbIt Solutions, and of course, many of you know Mike Bernaiche on our team, and they're going to be sharing with you kind of, for a while it's been this like, we even did a webinar about a year ago about like which one wins, right? But what we realized is in reality, most of our clients have both and they don't have to fight. They can actually play very well together when you really understand what tool to use when and also how to position it within your organization. So let me now I'm assuming, do me a favor, put a 1 in chat if you currently have both Cognos Cognos and Power BI. Go ahead and put a 1 in chat. If you only have Cognos, put a 2, and if you only have Power BI, put a 3. Let's go ahead and look at these. Okay, we're getting some 2s in there. So some of you only have Cognos, which is great. What we're finding too in organizations that have Cognos as their lead reporting tool, we're seeing that, some of the executives are like, why don't we just use Microsoft for everything? So we're going to arm you guys with some information on that today as well. Now, what I like to say about these tools is, we need to understand a little bit of the history. Cognos has been around forever, and Mike and Nipun will go into this more, but Power BI kind of came in, and a lot of times they went into the different departments and they showed what they could do without IT. And they were very successful doing that. But what we found is when they started doing that, they created these little silos of information. And then once you wanted to like say, okay, now let's bring that all into the enterprise, that's when some challenges started to arise. And this is why we think that having both tools is actually a really good solution for many companies. But let's go ahead. Nipun, we'll start with you. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Nipun Gupta here. I am an independent contractor, as Heather mentioned, with ClimbIt Solutions. I've been working in the BI space for 15 plus years now. I started with Cognos as my primary tool of, not choice, but I guess I was just thrown into it, right? So that's where I learned it. And then with the introduction of Power BI in like 2015-ish, I started diversifying my portfolio and adding that to the mix as well.
Excellent. And guys, you're not going to find someone better that knows both tools. So you have a superpower resource in Nipun here today. And Mike, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, we like to call Nipun a unicorn. He knows both, and there aren't many who do. So he's a unicorn. You found one. My name is Mike Bernaiche with Lodestar Solutions, and like Nipun, I have been in the BI IBM space for, I don't even want to admit it, but it's closing in on 30 years. I started way back when as a client of Lodestar, actually, and I kind of like Nipun, I was kind of thrown into it. I was handed a Transformer 3.1 disk and said, install this and see how it works. And that was many moons ago. And so over the course of time, obviously Cognos has changed, and I've been working with it ever since. Been with Lodestar about 15 years now. And I run our IBM analytics practice at Lodestar.
Excellent. So if you guys have questions, we will have Q&A at the end. Other thing, Mike's going to have a special kind of surprise gift for you at the end. So you're going to want to stay the whole time, guys. And like I said, go ahead, put any questions that you have in chat. We'll try and field them as we go, but at the end, we'll definitely circle back and get any questions. And I'm looking at some of the attendees here. Some of guys, we have some amazing attendees that know these products really well. So if you see that someone puts a question in chat and you're an expert and you know the answer, go ahead and answer it. We're trying to give that sense of community. So feel free to kind of chat in chat. Okay, Mike, I'll pass it back off to you.
Awesome. So let's real quick just briefly talk about, let you know what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about kind of a high level comparison of both tools, right? And it's not going to be one versus the other, and there has to be a winner. It's more of, hey, I might own both of these, or I might be of made to start using both of these, and how can we, what does what best, and what maybe doesn't do something quite as well. Along with that overview, we're going to talk about when to use it, how to use it, and just give you a real good overview of both tools and where we as people who've used them for a long time see how they fit. I'll talk more about Cognos. Nipun will talk more about Power BI, but together we're gonna, make this more conversational. And we want questions, right? Please ask the questions. You've given us an hour of your time, and we want to make it as useful as possible for you. So maybe we'll just start with, most of you are using these tools, right? Maybe there's somebody on here who doesn't really have a good BI tool. You're using something out of an ERP or whatever. And what does BI really mean? And it starts with data, right? Everybody has data, and it sits in a data warehouse, or it sits in a some data lake, whatever it might be. But it's just sitting there as data, and it's not very useful in that way, right? BI basically is going to take that data, and it's going to transform it in a way that you can use for analysis or reporting, or even now with some AI and things of that nature. You can really make meaningful decisions and insights with that data, right? Nipun, maybe you want to talk about how you're seeing it with trends and opportunities and things like that.
Yeah. So, as you said, every company collects their raw data, but just to make sense of that data, we use tools like our Cognos, Power BI to kind of identify trends, right? Using those trends, we have opportunities to optimize our systems, right? To see what we can do better, what we have been doing good already, keep doing that, those kind of things.
Absolutely. And then there are factors, right, that you need to know about when you're selecting a BI tool. User accessibility. How does the user get in? How is it secured?
So, Mike, on the user
Go ahead.
accessibility, right?
Yeah.
What kind of users are we talking about, right?
Exactly,
Are they business users? Are they IT users, right? Because business users are usually not too technical. IT users are probably going to be more technical. So depending on your user base, right, that can help you select which tool to go towards and which to stay away from.
Yeah, and talk a little bit more about data handling, Nipun.
Right? Data handling. So how big is your data, right? What kind of data do you have? Do you have Excel files? Do you have data stored in a database? Is it structured? Is it unstructured, right? Depending on what kind of data you have, different tools can give you different capabilities of doing things, right? Go ahead.
I was going to say, and then taking that even further, right, is how does it integrate with our existing applications?
Yeah.
What ecosystem is the organization already on? Does the tool in question play nicely with that ecosystem? How does it integrate with, whatever our backend data is? How are we bringing that in? How are we maybe using that in other systems? So integration is a huge piece of the puzzle when it comes to selecting a BI tool. And maybe Nipun, you want to expand on that a little bit.
No, I think you've touched all the points. I mean, the ecosystem that the company is already on, you want to get a tool that integrates well into it, right? Because you don't want anything that you have to change all your systems for.
Absolutely.
Right.
And then scalability is a big deal, right? Will the tool you're selecting grow with your business needs, right? In the beginning, it's easy to just slap a BI tool, and
Yeah.
there's hundreds of them out there, right? It's easy to slap one on, and kind of like I did back 30 years ago, it was, take this disk, here's transformer, figure out how to load some data in there and do some reporting on it, right? Um, Candidly, transformer wasn't going to grow with the business over the years, so it's important to see how that BI tool scales up with your organization, where you can start with a small subset of users to rolling it out to the entire enterprise, and how that can help you, right?
Yeah. Correct.
And then lastly, it's the big one, it's cost. um what is the total cost of ownership? Is it maybe less expensive in the beginning, but can grow exponentially as you add in different modules or bring in data, add more, how many users, right? There's all these different tools out there, and some are more expensive at the beginning, some are less expensive. Um, but you got to look at what the exponential growth might look like when you're selecting one of these tools, right? And maybe
Yep.
Nipun, you can expand on that, because you have that Power BI knowledge, and we're just going to call it out there, right? Power BI is known for being less expensive at the
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as you said, with some tools, it's easy to just get started with, right? They may even be free to start with, but as you start adding more data, more users, that can actually add a lot of cost to it.
Absolutely. And
You
look,
know what?
Vanna's back.
If you don't mind, I'm going to chime in, Mike.
Yeah, no,
You
please.
know, I think there's a good analogy here that I just keeps popping in my mind when I think of the, especially Cognos. So, I have a property, an Airbnb property, and the first door lock that I put on it had a, like, I could program the keypad. I thought this was super cool, right? And now they had this other one that was Wi-Fi enabled, and at the time, this was a few years back, I was like, why would I need a Wi-Fi enabled door?
Why pay the extra $100, right?
Like, why? Like, I'm Betty Barga. You guys know that. I was like, what? Like, I just need to program the code so that I don't have to use a key. Well, it wasn't very long before I realized that I invested in a quick fix that was cheaper, when in reality, what I needed on an Airbnb property, especially, is something that I can see who opened the door. Like, I could, if Mike was going to that condo right now, I could be like, "Oh, Mike, what's your birthday? I'll set up your door code." Right. And it's, these tools are like that. Like Power BI, it's that fast door that I got the lock right away and it's cheap. But if I would have invested in the real time to understand my business needs and my growth strategy, then I would have invested in not just the Wi-Fi one, but I would make sure I tested. There's two different Wi-Fi ones, if you guys didn't know this. One goes out and pings the hub all the time, and that one's cheaper. But if you pay for that more expensive one, it doesn't burn through the batteries, right? So making sure that you really look at your requirements discovery of what you need
Absolutely.
and tie that back to this.
No, great points, Heather. I love that analogy. That's it does make sense in my head, because I've had that same issue. So it's a good analogy. All right, so let's just do a quick overview of uh, Cognos and Power BI. So the history of Cognos, it's been around, I think, since the late 60s, early 70s, but really was established in the 1980s, and then acquired by IBM in 2007. So it has a long history, and IBM has a legacy in the business intelligence space. Um, and really, that was primarily focused around reporting and analysis tools. And it still is, to be honest. But um, that the reporting functionality of Cognos is really what stands it apart from a lot of BI tools even today. And we'll dive deeper into that. But over the years, Cognos has has strengthened its portfolio. It has turned just not from a reporting platform, but really into a modern, analytics solution that offers a number of different license types, including, SaaS on the cloud. And then the background is now powered, with some Watson. So the evolution of Cognos has really come a long way. And I'm just going to be honest, it has come a long way in the last 2 years to me anyway. My opinion. Once we went to Cognos 11, things got better. And now that we're in this 12 version and moving, the product has become truly self-service and truly very, very powerful.
But don't you think they were a little late to the game, Mike? I mean,
They
let's be
were, they
honest.
were, yeah.
Like we as partners were kind of struggling because they weren't pivoting fast enough, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's where Power BI got really they seized that opportunity, even Tableau, Click, right? And they seized that opportunity. And unfortunately, for a lot of you, you're facing, if you're Cognos admins, you love Cognos, you're still facing that there's this perception that
Mhm.
Cognos is old or it's antiquated. And we're here to tell you that is absolutely not the case, but we have to do some little catch up in perception with a lot of the executives.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And Nipun, you can jump in. I mean, you use both of them and you see it, and that's just true. Like it was a little late to the game, and Power BI jumped, especially with visualizations. And everybody loves
Yes.
the pretty pictures and graphs, right? And that's, I think, at least maybe from your perspective, you tell me what you think.
So, this was back in as I said, 15 or 16 when Power BI kind of took off. And yes, you're right. They were actually geared more towards visualization. And at that time, I think even with Cognos 11, dashboarding was on the horizon, but it was actually not, that robust.
Mhm.
But yeah, a little bit of the bandwagon was missed, but I think users who have Cognos are trying to use or are using dashboarding and the other capabilities now more and more.
Yeah, yeah, and we talk more about that in a little bit, but dashboarding has come a long way, and it's
Yeah.
it's super quick. One of the complaints a few years back was it was a little bit slower. They've done some things to make that really, really fast. There's, I don't know, 37 or more visualization types. They continue to add. There's unlimited formatting, all the things that you would expect
Hmm.
from a dashboarding tool, right? But
Yeah.
Cognos is so much more than that. And some of the strengths I just talked about reporting. Um, Cognos reporting in Cognos has been the gold standard as long as I can remember.
Hmm.
Just from the ability to create those, pixel perfect reports that can be scheduled and bursted out to the end user base. It to me is just very, very powerful, and there isn't really another tool, including Power BI, that can even match that level of reporting. The scalability, and now with Watson and AI and analytics, it's and the Watson assistant that is, or the a BI assistant that is inside of Cognos, the AI that's built in, and if you haven't seen it, and you're wondering why you're a little confused about this, let's take me up on that free offer at the end. Um, but there are some challenges, right? There is a bit of a steeper um, learning curve, to be frank. It does look a little more overwhelming when you compare it to a Power BI, right? If you use Excel and you've used a pivot table, probably figure out Power BI pretty quick. Um, but once you've learned and can start to take what you've learned and expand on it in Cognos, you can become really, really powerful within your organization. Um, there can be a higher cost, but IBM has done a great job over the years to really go to a number of different licensing model, but they can become very, very competitive with Power BI, especially once you start adding in some different items to Power BI, right? Um, and the infrastructure needs, again, can be a little challenging with Cognos, but again, IBM has made this much, much easier over the course of time. And then lastly, some of the typical use cases with Cognos, financial and operational reporting. As I said, it's excellent reporting tool, the gold standard in my mind. Complex regulatory requirements, right? Cognos is known for being, very robust, very secure. excellent governance within the system. You get that one version of the truth. The security is top notch. And then, businesses that need centralized IT managed reporting as well. So number of different use cases, and I'm sure we'll talk more in detail as we go on. And Nipun, you want to take the Power BI
Yeah.
story?
So as I've mentioned before, right? 2015 is when it was launched. Pretty much started from Excel, but a fork in the road, definitely different from Excel. And from the get-go, it was geared more towards business users, self-service business users, and that's one of its core strengths, right? It tries to make reporting easier so that people who don't have that much technical experience can still go and do their analysis, right? Another core strength, the integration within the Microsoft suite, right? Being the same product from the same company, it integrates very well into Excel. If you have Azure databases or Azure cloud environments, it integrates pretty nicely into that. And then AI-powered insights. I know, Mike, as you talked, Cognos is getting into it, but Power BI definitely has a leg up on it, especially with like the machine learning, which has evolved over the years, but started way earlier than Cognos did. Right? I think, there's definitely some challenges for large enterprises. There's governance challenges, right? One version of the truth. If you have users who can easily take their data and start analyzing it, there could be instances where different people can come up with different version of the truth, right? And then working with big data, right? It's great for medium size, small size data sets, but as you start getting into billions of rows and whatnot, you can run into some limitations. One thing that I forgot is, Mike, in the challenges with the DAX learning, right? So as we said with Cognos, there's a little bit of learning challenge with Cognos. Even with Power BI, getting started easier, but if you want to do calculations, complex measures, learning the DAX language definitely has a curve to it, right? So yeah, the typical use cases, Power BI, if you have a small, mid-sized organization, definitely good for you, right? You can get started on it very quickly. If you use Microsoft products, right? Easy to bring Power BI into the mix, right? Or if you just want to take some small data and do quick ad hoc analysis, it's a tool for you.
So there is, if we go back real quick, Mike, there is a question in chat
Okay.
that this is, I've been using Cognos for quite some time now. Our stakeholders require regular reports, which we typically deliver via scheduled jobs in Excel format. From what I've heard, Power BI is an excellent for visualizations. However, when it comes to regular structured reporting, Cognos still seems to have that edge. That said, I'd like to understand, does Power BI offer similar capabilities for advanced reporting and scheduling?
Yes, it does. So in Power BI, there's something called paginated reports, right? The engine behind paginated reports is the same engine that was behind SQL Server reporting services. And even the user interface is very close to that. So paginated reports can be built on top of your data sets, and they are the pixel perfect version of Power BI reports. Where in Cognos you have reporting, in Power BI it's called paginated reports.
Do you know, do they have to have a different licensing model for that?
No. So as long as you have a pro or premium license, you can use paginated reports.
But I don't think they can be scheduled. Is that correct? Or you have to do some coding to do it.
So with Power BI, there is so you can do that, but it's not as seamless or as easy as it is in Cognos for sure. But you can do it. Oh, Power Apps. Using Power Apps, you can do it. Yes.
I've seen Power Apps.
Yes, you can do it.
Yeah.
Yes. Power Automate.
Anything else?
Somebody just put it in there.
Yeah, good. Anything else,
Power
Heather, before we
Automate,
move on?
Thanks, Liz.
Yeah. No other questions, Heather?
There was one other question. Will you be sharing this presentation and slides at the end of the webinar? I'll let you guys decide on that one. We talked about it.
if we
I
get,
think we can do. I think we'll do like a scaled down version of it because it's like 20,
yeah,
25 slides. I don't think we need that, but we'll
Yeah,
probably
you
do
don't
a
need tool
concise.
comparison on there.
we could do a summary type scenario
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
The cost for Power Automate, I think there's not a separate cost for Power Automate. It is included in your Power Apps. So if you have
Yeah,
the Microsoft Suite and whatnot, I think
yeah.
it's already in.
Isn't it like, yeah, I think you have to have like an e
Yeah,
license maybe or something, if
yeah,
I remember
something.
correctly.
Yep.
I don't think you can have just a general, but most of you are going to have an E level or higher license, I would think. So let's just start some of the comparisons here. Just, you know, a few main areas that we chose to talk about. Ease, you know, user experience and ease of use, right? It's a iDream, you know, sorry about that. Cognos is an IT driven reporting tool with a steeper learning curve, but that's changing. And I want to make sure, you know, it's always been known as this, but it is changing in terms of, you know, I'm sorry, Mike, for structured and repeatable reports, right? Um, Trying to balance that needs of the IT and the business users. You know, Cognos is really driven by that. But I just want to say the user experience in my mind has gotten so much better over the last couple years with the Cognos Assistant and being able to utilize self-service and do simple things like, you know, connect to some source of data and type in a show me sales for yesterday and have the system return that number and then prompt it even further and then create charts or graphs and put them in a dashboard. And that ease of use has become so much better over the you know the time. But reporting, you know, still the gold standard in my mind.
So for user experience and ease of use, right? I mean, talking to clients, other users at my clients, people just feel like Power BI is just easier to start with, right? They feel like most users have been working with Excel for long enough to say, if I go to Power BI, I should be able to figure it out. I think that it's also like a, you know, like an image that comes with it. Cognos definitely has an image where it's like, you know, if I go into here, I'm, you know, I don't know what to expect. With Power BI, for some reason, users are able to say, I'll figure it out, right? So they have been able to market it that way, that it is geared towards users who are not technical, right? And it's easy for them to go in and start using the tool.
Yeah, and versus Cognos in that, right? It can look a little overwhelming. As I said earlier,
Yeah.
I think in Power BI, right, you're looking at Excel, and most people know Excel and they're it's comfortable. When you log into Cognos for the first time, it can look a little overwhelming, but once you've learned, you know, hey, here's where reporting is, here's where dashboards are, here's how I can use the assistant, you know, here's how I can even use, you know, create my own data models that are, you know, very simple using AI and help, you know, help have the system help you build up that data module so I can take that huge data warehouse and shrink that down into just that little snippet of data that I need. You know, once you get past those hurdles, the power is certainly there for sure.
Well, and I also want to make sure, you know, I always play devil's advocate. You know, when we give people a tool that's really easy, which is great, and they're off learning, that's great until it's no longer great. Meaning people will go rogue, people will grab data, not realizing there's data policy rules, there's stuff like that, right? So I think that although yes, Power BI, when you first pick it up, like you can often run with it, I think there's an argument to be said there that with Cognos, especially the people on this call that are probably administrators or at least power users, like Cognos really gives you not just the opportunity to shine and educate and teach people how to use the tools, but that also puts in an opportunity to really coach people on how do we have good like rules or guidelines or policies that we follow as far as understanding. I mean, especially as we're starting to infuse AI into these technologies, we've seen AI go delusional. I mean, sometimes it's hilarious, right? So just like making certain that we're not just giving people tools and they're off and running, but we're educating them when, why, how, and putting some frameworks around that before we get into a complete cluster.
Yeah, exactly. And next comparison we're going to talk about is, data connectivity and integration, right? So Cognos is known for its strong support of relational databases, enterprise data warehouses, and IBM, other IBM tools, planning analytics, maybe SPSS, moving to planning analytics, moving into Cognos, right? So it's very, very sound when it comes to connecting to IBM tools and support for relational databases, enterprise data, and really, honestly, even flat files now, loading up an Excel file with multiple tabs. The system is smart enough to actually take that into a data module and look at those tabs as different, almost a fact in a dim table from a database, and connect those in the background with relationships. So, very, very powerful connectivity and integration on the Cognos side for sure.
Yeah, same thing with Power BI. I mean, they have like 100+ connectors where you can connect the tool to different kind of databases. May that be on-prem databases, may they be on the cloud, if you want to do flat files, all these kind of different things. You can connect it to, pretty much anything, and then you can bring the data in for your analysis, right? And then with the integration, most of the companies that I've gone to, they have some kind of Microsoft tools already. So that definitely is a leg up for Power BI, because if you have anything of Microsoft, it just makes it so easy to bring Power BI into the mix.
Yeah, in the end, both tools will connect to
Yeah, the
most
databases, wherever the
anything
data is
in
sitting.
one way, shape, or form in today's
Yes.
world, right? Maybe 10, 15,
Yeah.
20 years ago, connections were a little bit different, but
Yeah.
in today's modern world with APIs and all the rest of it, and cloud connections, both tools are going to connect to pretty much anything, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
So in that way, they both do an amazing job to get to the data that you have. And then obviously, as we talked about, use it for analysis or whatever it might be.
Mhm.
So advanced, analytics and AI capabilities. On the Cognos side, Watson has been in the product for a little while now. The Cognos AI assistant has been there, I think since maybe 11.1, if I remember correctly, somewhere back in there. But today it's super powerful. Utilizing the assistant, as I said, to just type in what you're looking for, and then to actually have natural language explanations of the data, the charts you're looking at, by clicking a button and having the system say, hey, based on this data and this chart, here's this state seems to be the highest in sales with an average of this, and the system just the AI in the background is really just doing an amazing job of giving the end user so many starting points to analyze data instead of you trying to figure out where to start. Cognos is really doing a great job to prompt you to start looking at, maybe why this is down or this is up, or why this one looks a little bit different than the rest. Along with some lightweight forecasting that's in the tool. It's really really pretty powerful what Cognos has done over the last couple years with AI, and for what's to come, right? Everybody knows of Watson X and everything else, so just how they're going to utilize that even further inside of the product is something to be excited about.
Yeah. So for Power BI, same thing. I think Power BI even started with the AI driven analytics or insights way before, right? They have their machine learning model, right, that you can use to actually create your models and then feed your data and get your answers from there. You can also use the predictive forecasting, right? Just like you said in Cognos, there's forecasting. You can use similar things in Power BI to do some forecasting models. There's also anomaly detection. So you can
Mhm.
actually give it your data and it will go analyze the data and point the outliers in your data to say, this is where some of the jumps are, this is where some of the dives are. So that can help you actually analyze your data quicker. So those are some of the things that Power BI adds to the mix.
I like to see that anomaly detection and outliers. For those who are on the call who use planning analytics in the PA assistant, that is now part of planning analytics where you can get outlier and data like that. So maybe it will come to Cognos. I don't know. That would be great. Scalability and performance. So as we talked about, Cognos has been built for large scale enterprise deployments over the years, with high volume reporting needs. But today it's really good for small, medium, large, any organization that is looking for robust reporting, that is looking to get into AI and analytics. And IBM has done a great job, to their credit, of offering a number of different license types, from on-prem to SaaS to subscription, where you can get in, with 5, 10, 20 users on a subscription on a cloud and really, realize the return on your investment very, very quickly. Comparative to years and years and years ago when Cognos was really enterprise, or the express level licensing, but it was costly, and they didn't have some of these other options. And kudos to IBM for bringing about other options, to compete with the $5 Power BI or whatever it might be.
$10, Mike.
$10 used to be
So,
five, right?
so for scalability and performance, right? So as we said, Power BI mostly geared towards, I would say, in my experience, right, small and mid organizations. But as you said, with licensing structure, you can actually gear the product towards any kind of organization, right? If you're an individual, you can get started for nothing, right? If you're a mid-sized organization, just a simple pro license. And then if you're an enterprise, right, you can scale it using different kind of licensing, like premium licensing or premium capacity and whatnot, right? So yes, the tool will grow with your organization, especially because it's on cloud. So scaling it up and down is actually
Mhm.
relatively easy and quick.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, guys, we have some questions in here.
Yeah.
Do we want to pop those in real quick?
We'll call it
Yeah.
timeout. Ask us questions.
For Cognos, do we still use Framework Manager as a data set?
So
Yes.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Do you want to answer it? No, go ahead. You can answer it
Okay.
too. We both are going to say the same thing.
Yeah. So Framework Manager, is not getting any updates, but it's still around. The new modeling tool is Data Modules. So you can use that in Cognos 11 and 12. Mike, now you can add if you miss anything.
Yeah. As Nipun said, Framework Manager is there. Been around forever. You use it forever, but in Data Modules has been part of Cognos 11, I think, since the inception. I'm going to just say it as it is. It was not very good in the beginning. That's 4 or 5 years ago. Today, Data Modules are wonderful, and think of it as a web-based framework manager that allows you to do, everything, connect to your data, create different views, do your unions, your joins, your relationships, all of that good stuff. But Cognos has embedded AI into that, to where if you connect to a data server that, has a zillion different tables in it, and you just select, let's say product and sales and date, AI in the background is going to take a look at that and kind of give you examples of what tables need to be in your data module. And then it's going to, in the background, actually create relationships for you. So everybody remembers trying to create those relationships in Framework Manager. And it's never been easy, to be honest. So IBM's done a great job with data modules, and that's really going to be the go forward, strategy. Think of, this huge amount of data, taking it to a data module to just take those pieces that you want. And then even going further to data sets, where you can take even a smaller snippet of that data, schedule it to repopulate, and make, dashboards and reporting super, super quick in Cognos.
Okay, guys.
Next question, Heather.
Yeah, there's let's say by the way, I thank you, Brian, and a couple others here. They've been kind of answering some of these questions, but I'm trying to make sure everyone sees the question in case you're like on your
Yeah,
phone or
perfect.
on chat. You know. Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, I've been using Cognos primarily as a business user rather than a technical or IT perspective. Now I'm looking to deepen my skills and learn how to create more advanced reports, particularly those that involve complex logic joins and multi-source data. Where would be a good place to start? Would learning SQL help this? And if so, does the specific SQL dialect like Oracle, MySQL, et cetera, play an important role? But one thing I'm going to throw out there before Mike answers this is at Lodestar, we are starting to create more and more course offerings where we do like small courses, but maybe Mike, you can share a little bit about that.
I'll actually let Nipun share because we work with him on our
Sure.
training, and I think I'm just going to be honest. I haven't consulted in a while, so
So, okay. So to answer your question, right? Knowing SQL, definitely a leg up, right? Because if you know SQL, you can
Mhm.
actually understand what the tool is trying to do, right? But as Mike had mentioned a few slides back, there is a learning curve with Cognos, right? And that comes in when you're doing complex reporting. Yes, things are anything that you want to do in Cognos, you can, but depends on how complex the reporting is, right? I do see a comment in there by YouTube. You can definitely YouTube, right? It'll give you some tips and tricks. You can do that. Or as Mike said, or Heather said, we have courses where you can actually come in and we have what you would call like essential courses where it's like, doing simple to
Mhm.
mid-level reports, or if you want to do more complex reporting, we can help with that.
Yeah, and we're actually talking about creating. I think this is where Heather was going with it. Kind of an experts group or ask. Stump the chump or ask the expert type groups. Um, where it's an annual fee where we provide a number of hours throughout the year where we can talk and teach and train these types of things. So if that's something that you're interested in, my email address will be at the end of this. Please reach out and I can give you more details on that. But we do have a number of different ways to help you, I think, get to that advanced level.
Yes, absolutely. And if there's stuff that you guys would like that we're not offering, just
Yeah.
ask. This is where we get our clients. For those of you, and I see a lot of you on here are our clients. Some of you aren't, though. You saw our webinar or you saw your invite. And one of the things we do at Lodestar Solutions, I think it's kind of unique and pretty cool, is that we offer our clients, people that do renewals with us or training with us or support or software licenses with us, become part of our Lodestar family. And every quarter, we go live and have a virtual user group. And in that, we're tackling some of your biggest challenges. It's almost like free consulting, honestly. And then we take those recordings of that user group and we put them in a library that our clients have access to whenever they want. So if when we tell the topic, it wasn't appropriate for you, but 2 months later, you're like, oh, I need to learn about those modules, then you go back and look at it. So just something to consider. But we're always looking for suggestions on what you guys want to learn. That being
Absolutely.
said, there's a couple more questions in here, Mike.
Mhm.
I'm aware that Cognos is a 3-tier architecture. Could you please give me the architecture of Power BI? Is Power BI a web-based tool? And where do you install Power BI?
Yes,
Nipun.
for sure, again. Yes.
Good questions.
So
Good questions.
with Power BI, right? There's a few different components, right? One is called Power BI Desktop, right? That's a free tool. You can download it. This is what you will use to develop your reports. Connect to a data source, bring in your Excel files or CSV data, and then you do your report development over there, right? Second thing is Power BI Service. This is the Azure cloud environment where you can publish your report. So the infrastructure has already been set up by Microsoft. You do not need to set it up unless you want to, which is going to be my next point. You can use that cloud environment to upload your reports. If you're just a single user, you don't need to pay for anything. You still have your free license. You can do whatever with your reporting. If you want to share that report, that's when pro licensing comes into play, which was I think $10 a month for a pro license. So you can get that. That way you can share your reports with other users, right? Now, even in Power BI service, you can buy capacity using premium. So that is like your own dedicated horsepower, right? If you want to go a step further and if you want to have an install of Power BI on premise, you can do that as well. But most clients, they just use Power BI capacity or premium capacity rather than trying to do their own install. Because if you do your own install, you're going to have to do all the administration and stuff by yourself. And then also with the upgrades, if you do your own on-prem, the upgrades are definitely going to be at least 6 months to a year behind compared to the service. So hopefully that answers your questions. If you have any specifics, you can throw it in the chat.
Any other questions, Heather? Just doing a time check here.
No, I'm pretty sure we cover them all.
All right. So this is just really a summarization. We haven't talked cost yet, and that's on the next slide, but just a summarization of what we just talked about. And we'll include this in the slide deck that we give you. But for the sake of time, I don't want to keep anybody over, but we still have some important topics to discuss. Which one of them is cost and licensing, right? So I've mentioned it a few times. Cognos has on-premise license, they have SaaS licensing, and they have subscription-based licensing. So a number of different ways to, as Nipun was saying, on-prem, you could put Power BI on-prem if you wanted to. I will say for Cognos, on-prem SaaS subscription, it's all going to be the same version. And when updates come, they're very, very close. You won't be too far behind. I think SaaS will get them first typically, but then they're available to the on-prem. So, a lot of different scenarios. And as I mentioned, it's not always, it's not as expensive like probably the perception has been forever, where you can get started, much less expensive, especially for small deployments.
So with Power BI, I think the marketing has been awesome, right? Because everyone feels like this is a much cheaper tool, right? I mean, you can actually get started with it for free. And then, as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, if you want to share things, that's where the pro license comes in. And if you have a large organization, that's where your premium licenses or your premium capacity is going to come.
So when we talk about choosing a tool, right? We've talked a lot about reporting, structured IT controlled reporting, or even finance, right? Reporting, business reporting, strict data governance, security requirements, and that large scale reporting with automation, right? That's where Cognos wins, I think, every time, compared to even other tools. Is it's really the gold standard of reporting, as I've said, and then there's a bunch of bonus stuff in there that you really should start looking at, right? And on the Power BI side,
yeah. So if you want to get started quickly, right? If you're just doing your analysis on small or mid-level data, right? Much easier to get started with. If cost is a factor, right? Small teams, small organizations, very easy to start with. You can do it for large organizations, but very easy for small and mid-sized organizations.
and then just to summarize everything, right? Cognos, challenging at first, but simplifies complex tasks over the course of time and can make, just don't get frustrated at the beginning, because there's a huge reward at the end with Cognos. And
yep, with Power BI, it's much easier to just start with. But if you want to do complex things, honestly, they can present challenges.
Absolutely. For the sake of time, because I want to make sure we hit any other questions, we will provide all of these. Maybe we'll hit on a couple. And there's a lot of what we talked about, maybe that wasn't on the screen, but just summarized for you guys. One of the things that maybe is a little different, Power BI does pretty frequent updates, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. And I think Nipun will tell you that as well. And Cognos is typically updating quarterly. There's typically 4 releases a year. Anything else on here that we want to point out, Nipun?
No, just that the updates are very regular. Power BI desktop gets updated like on a monthly basis. The service gets updated like every 6 months or so. But yeah, other than that, I think we touched on all the points.
We've touched on most of
Oh,
these.
actually,
Yeah.
one point that I missed, Mike, if you go back, the mobile app, yes.
Yeah.
Power BI's
Yeah.
mobile app, definitely much better, much easier to develop for. And, especially if you're using Power BI service, very easy for users to get their data on iPads or phones or anywhere they want.
Yeah, and Cognos has a mobile app. They actually have a mobile license, if you haven't heard of that. So a mobile only license. The mobile app, I think is pretty good, but developing for it, I think is a little more difficult. But it does have some cool features like setting thresholds on certain data points that will send push notifications. Maybe you say, hey, if sales are down more than 10% at any time, push me a notification. So the app does support that. But I do think, from what I understand, Power BI does definitely have a leg up on the mobile capabilities. And then we have some of the shortcomings, right? There's the DAX learning curve that you mentioned earlier.
Yep.
On the Cognos side, a little more complex to customization of dashboards and visualizations and data exploration. We talked about mobile here and the learning curve. So we talked about most of these. But we need to make sure that every product is good, right? Power BI is good, Cognos is really good. They all have great features. They all have some shortcomings that you should be aware of as you determine what is being used in the organization together, right? Because there's a place for both. Because there are such differences in certain areas that there certainly can be a place for both. But if you only own, let's say Cognos, let's talk about the state of your Cognos. And this is really the end here, what I'm offering. Let's talk about your Cognos environment. Let's talk about how you're using it. Maybe you've heard some things today that you're just not, you haven't seen, or maybe your administrator has the Cognos assistant turned off for whatever reason, or you don't see data modules that we talked about. Let's do a state of your Cognos call, and let's see how we can get you using it more, get you more comfortable. Maybe you're on an older version, or maybe you need some training, whatever it might be. Go ahead and pull out your phone, scan this QR code. My email address will be on the next slide. You could always email me, but this will take you right to a bookings page. You can take a look at the calendar and schedule 30 minutes for whatever you like, right? If there's some Power BI in there and you want to talk more in detail, I'll grab Nipun and we'll both talk to you about that.
Yeah.
So take out that. I'm going to leave this up. Heather, are there any questions?
Yes, we got another one from Juliana. Is SSRS going away and replaced by Power BI?
Short answer is yes. So SSRS was the old reporting services. As I just mentioned, I think a few minutes ago, paginated reports are similar to what SSRS was, and yes, they are a part of Power BI. So if you know how to develop in SSRS, you can actually use those skills in paginated reports. Just connecting to the data and using the DAC language is a little different, but you can still use your expertise in the tool.
And really, guys, no matter what your level is, if you book the time with Mike, there's no stupid questions. Like, we appreciate any questions that you have, because we've all been there. Everyone on this webinar is at different levels of knowledge and experience as it comes to these tools. So the only way that we learn is by asking the questions. So for those of you that are question askers that have asked them in chat, I honor you and I appreciate you. And Mike, I'll let you kind of wrap it up.
Yeah, there's our email addresses. If you need to reach out to us, please feel free. As I said, book that time. We'd love to talk to you. Just maybe I'm just struggling with this particular piece. Reach out, schedule the time. Let's talk. That's our free gift to you, is 30 minutes to discuss where you're at and how we can help, right? I hope that you found this information useful. We could probably do this next month and we probably have different information, because things are changing so rapidly, right? And I'm really hopeful that you found it useful, and that just know we're here to help. We want to empower you to make the right decisions with these tools that you already have, right?
There is one
That's
more
kind of my
question.
wrap up. Oh,
Yeah,
go ahead.
there's one more question here, guys. Some of you saw that I put a plug in for Tech Exchange. Tech Exchange is, to me, the best conference IBM has. I don't say that lightly. For years, I was like, the conferences are just a big sales pitch. Tech Exchange is what I'm going to call a geek fest. And someone said I didn't see a lot of Cognos agenda items. The agenda item, the sessions have not been selected. I'm actually part of the committee that helps select some of those as a Tech Exchange ambassador. And although they might not have a ton of sessions, what I think is hugely valuable is that what I've noticed in the last 3 Tech Exchange, and those are all they've had, is that the Cognos people from around the world tend to get together. And if you're one of those people and you come to Tech Exchange, I am happy to introduce you to some of our partners and our other associates around the world that are Cognos Power users. Why I think this is so valuable. Have you ever had a challenge and you're like late at night and all of a sudden you're like, this like I can't get through this. Imagine having a network of friends globally. So I could be like, yo, Ralph in Barcelona, hey, or Jens in Germany, like I have this problem. And all of a sudden, boom, you have answers. So I can't explain it how valuable your network is. As we get into the state of even more AI and everything, you're going to see that having that network and that group that you can go to for quick questions and help each other is super valuable. At Tech Exchange, that's what I see happens. How about you, Mike?
It's
What
a
was your
great event.
experience?
It really is. It's an excellent event. Especially for Cognos and planning. There are a number of events. There's customer stories. There's all sorts of product managers and experts running around. And it's where you're going to learn about what's coming. And I know I can't say really much, but I know there's some really, really exciting stuff coming on the Cognos side of the house. I would imagine there'll be some announcements forthcoming, but there's probably going to be some good reveals. And I just think, if you're into the weeds and you love using the product, I would try everything you can to be there. It's in Orlando this year, which is so much easier for most of us to travel to than Las Vegas. So that helps as well. So it's an excellent event. It is the best event that IBM
if you
has in my
guys
mind.
are struggling to get your bosses or the powers to be to approve it, let us know. We actually have write-up sheets that can help you pitch it internally on how to get funding. I've done videos on this because I think it's so important for you guys to network. And I do understand a lot of companies are cost conscious, but imagine if you could, be able to solve a problem faster just because you connected with the right people. So we're happy to help you learn the art of pitching so you can get funding to go to Tech Exchange.
Nipun, any last thoughts?
No, I think I'm good. I think we covered everything.
Well, guys, I have one more favor before everyone drops out. We like to do this 0 to 10, 10 being fabulous, 0 meaning someone probably lost their dog this morning. Put in, how did you feel from this session? Where do you rank it? And then we'd love to hear from you if you have suggestions to make it better. We do this based on what you guys give us. So go ahead, put in chat right now your score 0 to 10. I'm going to give it a 9.5 because I always think that there's a little room for improvement. But let us know how you guys did. Hopefully you found this valuable. And as you're here today, you are on our mailing list. So we'll be sending you other events. And last but not least, if you have ILMT, if you have PVU licensing, schedule the call with Mike. There's a lot of different things with PVU licensing, and we don't want you to fail it. So,
and I love that someone gave us a 9.157.
157. Yep. That's what
I
I
love
like
it.
Thank you guys. Everyone have an extraordinary
Thanks so much,
day,
everybody.
and we'll see you on our next webinar.
Thank you.
Take care.